Cool.
And a lot of that, I mean, so far, machine learning math still holds up. That's the kind of thing that will really last generations or so. I guess quantum computers and very good. I mean, if you think about something like Sabbaths, Genesis Sabbaths of Google's mind, so he's been behind a lot of those breakthroughs. So he's not really a mathematician, but they're like myths. Very interesting about that.
Just in time. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to today's session. It's a traditional Wednesday session. My name is Martin. I'm going to be your host. Very suitably named Know Enough AI to Be Dangerous. We can go very deep into a certain topic that might interest you, or we might just skim over the top of the latest week's news. What does it mean, how to prepare yourself, and how to go forward with this newly obtained information? I've been doing these meetups for, well, close to a year now. It's been a fun ride so far. So thank you very much, all of you, for coming. And the format of today's sessions, I'm going to go through the slides. I have, I think, 11 of them prepared. We can go very quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to basically ask at any time. There is absolutely no problem with that. Just be mindful of everyone else in the room so we are not talking across each other. At the end of the session, I would like us to basically split into smaller pods so that way we can better exchange information, help each other out if we're struggling with something. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's dive into the news and into the things that happened last week. So what we are going to cover, Claude Fable 5 was definitely the number one thing on the list, on the menu. It was great, it is great, it was there for 3 days, it has been pulled back. Well, what you gonna do? SpaceX IPOs, as they IPO'd, they pulled the sneaky one. They basically used their valuation to acquire one of their, let's quote unquote, call them competitors. I call them data sources, which is Cursor. So it might be very cool going forwards when we're looking at things like how to actually make a really good coding agent. SpaceX has the compute, Cursor has the data. It might be good times ahead. Mimo from Xiaomi dropped their ultra speed. And what does it actually mean for us? Ultra speed is a very good version of their Mimo LLM that produces over 1,000 tokens per second of outputs with infinitesimally more of prefill. That means all of the very resource intensive and data heavy tasks are much, much, much simpler and easier to finish. There has been a couple of videos that I've looked at, and the output actually looks quite good. The best that they could do was, I think, around 5,000 tokens per second. To put that into perspective, humans read at a rate of like 10 tokens per second. So it's like blazingly fast. Coding model race. We had 72 hours of basically absolute goodies being thrown our way. Started with Kimi K 2.7, GLM 5.2, love them or hate them, I'm on the edge. They dropped 5.2, which is apparently very good at coding. And Cohere North is something that you can actually run on your local device, as it's only 30 billion parameters with A3B architecture. For those of us who are into coding, GitHub is absolutely broken. 88% availability, that's like no good anymore. We've been going through this topic multiple times. Forjo is a very good alternative. If you can and know how to, definitely self-host. Why are they breaking? 17 million pull requests a month. That's crazy. Like altogether, they're ramping up to have 14 billion individual bits and pieces that they need to process, be it pull requests or workflow tasks, etc. To put that into comparison, last year that was 1 billion of operations that they had to do. So imagine like suddenly you have a massive scale operation that you kind of sort of upkeeping, and suddenly you have 14 times more traffic. That's crazy.
To be honest, that is a very low number from a database perspective. Like, I'm shocked that they can't handle something like that trivially.
Fun fact, they could have, but they chose a different path because as Microsoft acquired GitHub, they actually went more towards SaaS and less towards we do this one thing and we do it well. So they started branching out, offering more enterprise-grade solutions, which are going far and beyond just this one thing that they started and they have been good at. We have some trending repositories that you can grab, install, do whatever the hell you want with them. Of the week, Odysseus still number one. PPT Master is a new entry, which is really good. IRO, for those who are building agentic systems, I'm going to explain it a little bit deeper. And Claritas, for those of you who are a little bit nosy, I'm going to explain that one later as well. And some of the quick hits, basically Meta has admitted that throwing money at the problem doesn't really solve it. If your operational pipeline sucks, they burned through billions and billions of dollars and achieved nothing. Their avocado model is kind of crap, still behind the Frontier Labs. OpenAI has been audited. They're spending $34 billion. These numbers mean nothing to me, you know? I'm very much a guy of like 5 digits territory, so like, okay, good for them. But no, they're spending a lot of money. It has actual big implications when we look at the schedule of the IPOs and the potential of the AI bubble bursting. Why are we even covering this? If the AI bubble bursts, our subscriptions are going to get more expensive because they stop being subsidized, and we might see less model releases from the West. Yeah, so let's go through this. Fable 5. Fable 5 is a very cool model that was launched June 9, and it was abruptly killed June 12th, just as I renewed my subscription. Heck yeah. So they shipped Claude Fable 5, which is unofficially their Mythos model. And this is the thing that happens if your marketing materials say that this is a cyber weapon. We should not release it. It is too dangerous for the public. Then you release it to the public and the officials get involved because you yourself labeled it a cyber weapon. So it was sort of to be expected that this sort of thing will happen. We didn't know which lab it's going to happen to. It happened to Anthropic. They had to pull it, so 72 hours of Fable 5 usage. We covered it last week as it dropped. If you got to use it, it is actually quite cool. It makes way less mistakes, can hold the thread of thinking for a longer time. But it doesn't really matter because we don't have access to it anymore. Once we regain access, as I assume that we will, there are certain caveats to basically take into consideration if you want to daily drive this model. It has massive security guardrails. If it suspects that something is a cybersecurity task or it has to do with anything around health, you have two options effectively. Option number one is that it bumps you down to Opus 4.8, and option two is that it basically just stops. I strongly advise you, once it's back, maybe in the next 4, 5, 3 days, who knows, try to toggle the option to downgrade to Opus 4.8 because it doesn't interrupt your flow. This is going to be a very recurring thing that you'll keep hearing from left and right. Every time you start a flow with Fable, at certain point it will stop because people won't have this automatic downgrade option toggled. Yeah, massive guardrails, but it is the mythos quality, state of the art. What?
Do you think it's really going to come back? Because I mean, they said apparently there was a jailbreak, and then
100%.
it was the same thing that ChatGPT had, and they didn't complain.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Political move, or is it really technical?
I would say that it's kind of sort of bit them in their ass. Like they're cool dudes, you know. They do great research. They put very good models out. I still pay them, but point being is their marketing verbal approach is a little bit too aggressive, and because they start with this fear mongering and everything else, it's kind of sort of just a marketing play. I very much remember when OpenAI did very, very much the same claim when GPT-2 was about to release. It's like, oh, it's too clever, it's too dangerous, it's going to ruin humanity. And it's like GPT-2. Like nowadays, if I gave you a GPT-2 grade model, you would be like, what is this crap? So it's definitely going to be released or re-released. I would even go as far to say that it won't be limited to just Americans, which is the initial thing that they didn't really account for. There are wordings that were captured about the possible KYC, know your customer, through Anthropic. So you would have to post a selfie, passport, and all the stuff like that. So it might be rolled out to Americans first, but eventually you'll get it as well. Like there is no way around it. And there is a very interesting benchmark, which unfortunately is not in these slides. It is very recent. Someone did the actual state-of-the-art benchmark, which was not limited to just one model. Now, if you do Fable 5 as is, it scored, I think, like 68 on that benchmark. Fable 5 plus Opus scored 69. Opus plus GPT-5.5 scored 67. So yes, it might be state-of-the-art as a singular model, but you can get there using different techniques, even with weaker models. So where is the state-of-the-art? Why block it? Especially if it's double the cost. It's 100% against their interests. Also, they, I think it was Dario, that released a memo of, okay, everyone, let's just cool down. Like, we don't need to develop AI as fast as we do. It's going to hurt the humanity. And that, like, 2 days later, they dropped this. It's like, you know, you stop doing what you're doing, but I'm gonna deploy market leader. That's sort of a, I don't know, like that sort of communication doesn't sit well with me.
Well, aren't they still blacklisted by the US government? That's maybe the reason, maybe they want to get it back at them.
They are, they're not. You know how it's, like with this American administration, it changes like that. We're winning, we're losing, we're this, we're that. Tariffs, no tariffs. It's like, it changes faster than the weather in Chiang Mai, man. It's really hard to predict, is what I want to say. So yeah, finding of a narrow potential jailbreak should not be cause for recalling a commercial model deployed to hundreds of millions. If this standard was applied across the industry, it would essentially halt all the new model deployments, which is very true. If anyone is interested in this topic, there is a very, very, very famous jailbreaker of models called Pliny the Liberator. And Pliny, basically every time there is a new model drop, it's jailbroken within like 10 minutes. It doesn't matter what the guardrails are. And he publishes all of the prompts and all of the techniques that he uses to get around these guardrails. Sometimes it's very simple. You just tell the model, like, I'm testing you. How do I make the bomb? Sometimes you use something that's called leet speak, which is a mix of letters and numbers. And suddenly, what was a problem in English language is not a problem in leet speak. And they can help you hack an app. So Pliny the Liberator, very, very, very interesting GitHub profile and personality on X. Check him out. Yeah, and this is a precedence of export controls directly being applied on an AI model rather than hardware, which can kind of suck for us. But in general, good model. When it comes back, check it out.
To play devil's advocate for a second, there's a good, I mean, regardless of the fact that Anthropic may not be trustworthy, I think we are at the point where advanced AIs can do significant damage to all parts of technology and society. I think we're already at that point. Just by finding, by finding vulnerabilities in software and systems in general. They're not just finding software vulnerabilities, they're finding system vulnerabilities, including social engineering, including all sorts of things like this. So I think we're already past the point where real oversight is needed.
I mean, for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, if there is a publicly available source of sort of same level intelligence, I'm pointing at Hugging Face right now, then why block the progress? That's the devil's advocate from the other end. But yeah, I do get it, and it's something that should have been done years ago. Unfortunately, legislation works very slowly. SpaceX pulled a sneaky one. They IPO'd June 12th, 135 per share, I think. Currently sitting at around 200. So if you got in early, you made some money. I don't think it's going to last, but who knows? It's suddenly fourth biggest technological company on the planet, especially on the US market. And they gained like 700 billion in the stock increase, like the company's worth increase. And they used some of the shares to actually buy out Cursor because it's all share deal. Like they didn't pay a single cent for it. They just gave shares to the owners of Cursor. Now, what does it mean? Grok and SpaceX has a lot of GPUs. They're making very fast models. Cursor is probably the single largest owner of a data set on vibe coding and AI agentic coding on the planet. They have the most customers. It just makes so much sense for SpaceX, if they want to get into the sector, to get them and get their data set to start training the next generation of Grok. This is what is basically happening. If you are using Cursor right now, there might be some turbulence, and sooner than later, you might be forced into using just one model. Whether that's good or bad, time will tell. But if we are taking the original Grok and its pricing as a precedence, they're actually making some cheap compute. Like it's very cheap LLM inference, very cheap intelligence. So it might lower your subscription cost, but it might lock you into a certain provider. Yeah, Cursor generates 150 million lines of enterprise code per day. 67% of Fortune 500 companies are using it. They have major enterprise customers. It's a very good job and a very good take on the market that Anthropic wants to corner. So it's going to be a very, very interesting top-level play. So XAI got dissolved, absorbed into SpaceX. SpaceX IPO'd, buys Cursor with inflated stock pricing, and Musk now controls the number 2 codings tool entire data pipeline. Clever play by Musk. That's pretty much it. Mimo. This is an interesting one because I was really shocked by the speed. It just goes so fast. Quality of output, as it was measured, roughly at the level of intelligence of GPT 5.4. So not the latest and the most frontier tech, but if it was good 3 months ago, might be good right now, right? At 1,000 tokens per second, you just kind of have to experience it. You wanted to generate an app, it's done in a minute. It's compared to what you're getting from ChatGPT, for example, that's usually sitting within 50 to 80 tokens per second. 100, if you're lucky, you're using subscription and no one else is logged in at a time. At 1,000 tokens per second, especially on commodity GPUs, which means that they're utilizing your RTX 5090s and similar, like, come on, that is actually quite good. They also dropped the Flash version, which is available for free. If you want to run it yourself using tools such as RunPod, it is possible to spin up your own instance and all of the data stays in-house. So we're getting into a territory where frontier level intelligence becomes a very personal thing starting from roughly $2,000, $3,000 a month, which I think it's quite cool. And as it is with Xiaomi, they're actually not charging a lot. I don't know if I have pricing here. Probably not. It's a little bit different for the super fast lane. They do have a coding plan. They do have subscriptions as well for this particular model. But you can use a raw API access through OpenRouter. I think it's sitting around $4 per million tokens. How do you actually get access to this? So you have to sign up and apply for API trial. Yeah, no problem. You have to sign up for the API trial. It's open until June 23rd, so it's closing very soon. Use this link, platform.xiaomimimo.com/ultraspeed. It's actually quite hard to find. Like, it's not available from the website just as is. So
it's different than the Trident one they were giving out like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. That one is, I think, 100 tokens per second. This is a specific mode called Ultra Speed that you have to apply for. So don't use it on production code bases right now. If you are doing something proprietary, I highly implore you, don't use this because it is subsidized. It is a Chinese company, 100% whatever data you're giving them, they're going to train the next generation of this model or fine-tune this model on that data. But in order to try it out, like how does 1,000 tokens per second actually feel? Absolutely fabulous. Give it a go.
By the way, just a little tidbit since we're on this topic. I just found this tweet that I was looking for, which is just today. What the hell is happening in AI? A 3 billion parameter model just put up coding benchmark scores in the same league as Claude Opus 4.5. This is a 3 billion parameter.
It's in a 3B though.
3 billion, just 3 billion. And the name is Byte Thinker. And this was posted by someone that I follow and very much respect, so it's not BS. So it's just remarkable that they're able to get like at a scale that you wouldn't imagine. So I'm just wondering what the tokens per second might be for this on a laptop.
On a 3 billion parameter model, I can right away tell you that you are going to get roughly 50 tokens per second at a start. I'm talking general MacBook or M2, M3. You're going to get roughly 50 tokens per second when you start, and depending on your context size, that's going to go all the way down to like a stable 20. And I can absolutely base this in reality because at 3 billion parameters, the memory bandwidth is what is going to limit you.
Also, just to comment on that, like the smaller models that do seem to perform so well in benchmarks, they tend to train the models on the questions in the benchmark, so they can kind of be inflated as well. So real performance is still kind of different, and they drift even more so when the context window is big.
Yep. They usually can't handle more than like 32K. It's personal experience. Like you actually have to heavily tweak it.
Vibe Thinker 3 billion.
Vibe Thinker.
And all I can say is that I've not seen an announcement of this kind, especially coming from someone like this before. So this, for me, it's a first.
Checkpoint for free version of Mimo is available on Hugging Face. If I recall it correctly, it's like 600 gigabytes, so definitely something that you need to run on distributed GPU meshes, not something that you can easily run on your own at home. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Coding model race. So for those of you who are heavily into coding, 3 models dropped very recently and in a very short time span. It's kind of hard to keep up with it, to be completely honest, and with all of the individual companies that are dropping them. Kimi K 2.7 code is a code-specific model, 1 trillion parameters, mixture of experts, very reasonable pricing. It's $1, let's call it, and $4 per million tokens input and output. It has high-speed mode, so you can achieve 180 to 260 tokens per second. It says that fewer thinking tokens than K2.6. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It heavily depends on the task at hand. And this is something that if you are dabbling with local models, you definitely need to fine-tune, because even smaller models like a 3 billion parameter one can get into these thinking loops, and that's what actually causes the drift. So you need to limit the amount of tokens that it has for thinking in order for it to know that it has an allocated budget for it. Yeah, so no independent benchmarks yet, only the vendor numbers. Take them with a grain of salt, as with every release from every lab, Chinese, Western, doesn't matter. When they say, oh, it's great, it's this, it's that, just wait a week and the real numbers will actually pop up. GLM 5.2, again, this used to be the #1 budget-friendly option on the markets. Unfortunately, it's not anymore. They've risen the pricing like 3x, and they actually bumped agents out of the coding plan, which was the huge appeal of GLM line of models. But they're shifting and gearing more towards active programmers and developers, and they're training the next generation models to actually fulfill this purpose and this purpose only. It's available on all tiers, which is quite a novel thing for GPU and for GLM as a whole. ZAI usually reserves frontier model only for the top paying tiers and then gradually releases it week after week to lower tier. Now it's available for all. And it's also available on Byte Plus Model Arc. And this is something that we've covered, I think, a month ago when they were running a promo. Model Arc is a ton of models basically mushed together. Think OpenRouter, but with Chinese models. They give you a subscription, you have your API key, you can call for images, you can call for coding agents, etc. It's quite convenient, but it's all open source models. So it's not going to be your state of the art. But that being said, it's quite cheap. So if you're on the budget, give this specific thing, if you've never heard about it, give it a go. It's quite good. I would compare it to something like OpenCode Go. And the third one that dropped, and this is the one that I'm actually yearning to try, but it's not available on Lemonade yet. Cohere North Mini Code, 30 billion parameters, 3 billion active, open weights, scored very high on artificial analysis intelligence index. And it's a very, very, very tiny coding model that is meant to run on consumer hardware, so you don't have to pay for subscriptions at all. What do you need for this? A rule of thumb, roughly 16 gigabytes of RAM at minimum. Otherwise, you're sacrificing the precision, which you don't really want to do with coding models. You have to fine tune the actual settings of the model. So how much it thinks, how long is the context window, how does it compact, etc. But if you go through all of these hoops, A, you learn something new, and B, you have something that you don't really have to pay for if you have the hardware to support it.
By the way, being a user of almost exclusively like local LLMs, what I find is just turn off thinking, and for task or for the specific prompts that require it, just tell it to focus on that one or think this one through, and it'll think just for that one little prompt rather than for the entire session. So you can just say, think this through, and it'll literally linger on that board.
So
you don't
you,
need to turn on the mode as a whole.
okay, you advise it to run it as an instruct model?
Yeah, just regular instruct mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's making silly mistakes on a specific prompt, say you need to really think this through, and then it will basically do the equivalent of what thinking mode would do.
Interesting. We can maybe utilize skills to basically mock a thinking mode as
Using a
well.
small, the other thing I've done completely with small models is skills, because that just needs a context window for
I would still say that with small models, 1 or 2 skills are desirable, depending on the task. Because with skills, you're reading just a header. It's a very small amount of data that unlocks a wider variety for the model to actually focus on. Yeah, okay, good point. Let's move on from this one. GitHub is so broken that Microsoft is using their competitor, AWS. So they're provisioning AWS capacity because GitHub can't handle the load on Azure anymore. This availability number is absolutely atrocious for an enterprise-grade product. For something that's supposed to run 24/7, to have 88% availability, that's absolutely no-go. We've covered this, and GitHub had plethora of issues spanning from pretty much the entire last month. They got hacked, secrets were leaked, private code was leaked. So if you're developing, you might start looking for alternatives. There are not that many on the market that are actually good and can supply most of the functionality of GitHub. But a very good entry to this entire conversation is something called Forjo. It's called Forge.jo. You can self-host your own GitHub. It comes with pretty much the same tool set as GitHub does. It's just you're in charge of everything. I use it personally for documentation. It has proven to be absolutely great because it versions everything. So every time I change the documentation, I have the previous copy on hand. Everything is behaving the same way as GitHub does. So I can just issue API tokens, scope the access for a specific agent, and I can safely store my code into like a secondary source.
Do we know specifically where in GitHub the hotspot is?
It's mostly the amount of traffic, as far as I know.
What does that mean? Which part of the traffic? I have a theory, but I'm just wondering whether.
It's the processing, because they tied every single thing that they do to so many different pathways that it could take.
There's
That-
one that stands out in my. There's one specific thing that stands out in my mind, which is agents. Actions.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that is a.
Well, they already curbed it. GitHub Actions have been curbed. And they have been, as far as I know, they have been chopping away the functionality gradually. They chopped away AI access to GitHub Copilot. They're chopping away actions. They're trying to kind of sustain the load because everybody uses GitHub. Like even the repos that I'm going to share are still hosted on GitHub. And very few major players on the market have shifted fully away from it. So until the major shift happens, that indie studios, independent developers, etc., are going to start using something else, we're stuck with GitHub. 9 incidents in May. Yeah. Trending GitHub repos. Number 1, Odysseus. If you are new to agentic work, if you are just dipping your toes into what does it mean to actually run agents, this is actually quite a good entryway. It is made by a YouTuber called PewDiePie, used to be one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet, not so much anymore. But he got very big into Linux, into open source, into AI recently as he moved to Japan. And he published Odysseus. It's a self-contained app. You can just download it and run it on your laptop. The whole ideology is that you should have control over every aspect of what you're doing with AI agents. There are no defaults, like you define everything. It will take some time to set it up, I'm not gonna lie, but it does a lot of the things right. It can manage your calendar, triage your inbox, you can hook in plugins, modules, a lot of the goodies that you would normally ask from SaaS company exist there already. So just setting this up to work with your, let's say, OpenAI subscription or something similar can get you quite far ahead. It is very similar to a project that we shared 2 weeks ago called Aeon UI, which is a Chinese-based project. Again, a lot of these are going to pop up simultaneously. What they're trying to solve for is that if you're not a tech person, how the heck do you navigate in this sphere? How the hell do you make an agent? Like, it sounds so simple for a programmer, but if you put it in front of a marketer, it might not be so simple. And a well-polished UX flow is what they're looking for. Now, this is like, gets you half of the way there, and it sacrifices the other half in favor of modularity, in favor of extensibility of the system, which is pretty cool. Second interesting repo that you should take a look at is called PPT Master. PPT Master basically generates PowerPoint presentations. That's it. It's a bundle of skills. You shove in your regular PowerPoint presentation, whatever it is, your daily brief that you have to give to your boss, or your pitch deck if you're fundraising. This is my style, this is my design. Now I need 50 of them, specifically tailored to 50 different funds that I'm pitching to. They need to be personal. This generates good results every time. The most important caveat is that normally when you give this task to a certain agent, it generates either a PDF, HTML, which doesn't have to translate fully well into PowerPoint presentation. This generates PPTX out of the box. So you can open it in your PowerPoint or your slides and actually adjust whatever you need to adjust manually, the finishing touches, let's call them. Another contender, N0 Computer, iRoll. This is the one that I'm personally most interested in. iRoll is basically a peer-to-peer sharing protocol. It could be for human to human, human to agent, but also agent to agent communication. General idea of iRoll is that there need to be 2 iRoll instances, and you're not connecting by sending the address, you're connecting by a simple key. And iRoll chooses whatever pathway is the best. Is it through a firewall's secure tunnel? Is it through public endpoint? Is it through Tailscale? Is it through whatever? Local area network, if you are in the same building. Share one key and get connected to anything. That's the general appeal of this. And as someone who's generating an agentic mesh for agents to communicate with each other, this is a very cool thing. Like, it saves me like 20% of the work that I need to do, which is very cool. And for those of you who are nosy and want to know how the things actually work under the hoods, Claritas, spelled in leet speak, this is leet speak, CL4R1T4S, Claritas, basically unveils all of the system prompts. And not just for the Frontier Labs, also for things like Siri, and some of the smaller players on the market. It's one of the big repositories that stores and maintains what the system prompt is looking like for each individual agent. Why is it interesting or important, might you ask? Well, if you want to know how something works, you kind of get the entire blueprint. What are we telling the AI? You are this. This is what you do. These are your tools. This is how you use them. This is what you have access to. This is what you shouldn't do. These are your guardrails. That's all parts of the system prompt. So seeing this and like peeking under the hood is actually quite interesting. Quick hits. And this is going to be the last one from me. Meta CTO, we did an atrocious job. So Andrew Bosworth's internal memo basically admitted that despite $115 to $135 billion that Meta have spent on AI in 2026, they just don't have it in them to actually execute on it. Their internal model is called Avocado, and like half of the Meta staff doesn't even have access to it. And it's months behind of the frontier labs. So they took a large chunk of money, they threw it at the problem, but they didn't solve the entire pipelines of research and actual integration within the company. So they ended up with nothing, just a hole in the pocket.
That's exactly the feeling that I'm getting about Elon and Cursor, right at the start.
Or purchase of Twitter, etc. But Elon is kind of master of spinning it up. Like once the ball drops, he's gonna fall hard, but he's spinning up. It's just stock into stock into stock into stock. Yeah, well. OpenAI and their spending. They had to audit themselves in the preparations of the IPO. They have spent $34 billion in 2025. That was the run rate. They're not profitable. 19 billion on R&D, 6 billion on sales and marketing. Anthropic hit the 30 billion run rate while spending a fraction of this. And as far as we know, Anthropic is actually in black, like they're actually making money, which is very interesting from the IPO standpoint and the whole AI bubble standpoint. If Anthropic goes to the market first, it's going to be actually good for Western AI, because a company that goes to the market is spending a lot of money, but at the same time, they're earning money. So you are getting an IPO of a company that is profitable. Whereas if OpenAI beats them to the punch and goes to the market first, it might pop the bubble and actually screw Anthropic in the process. Because a company will IPO and suddenly like, oh, you're making 5 billion and you're spending 35. Like, why are we funding this? Why is this stock so inflated? So that might be an interesting thing to look for. Classic brain tests has exposed AI's biggest weakness. It's not something that is new to us. We all know that AI gets dumber as the context grows. The needle in the haystack, and especially the all-long pairs, the many-to-many connections, they start to degrade roughly around 64 to 128K context, with the most noticeable fall-off after 32. This is true for all models across the board, even the frontier ones. So when they advertise, oh, 1 million context window, cool, but it's not always the best.
I think a lot of that is due to we still haven't cracked positional embeddings well enough.
That is very, very, very true. And there is an incredible thing that I stumbled across literally today. Yuka, just give me a sec, I'll pull his name up. Company is called Advanced Machine Intelligence. I don't remember the name. Yuka something. He's a big brain guy in terms of AI. But
Not Jan LeCun.
Januka?
Jan LeCun,
Yeah.
Jan LeCun,
Yeah.
doing a lot of robotics right now.
Yeah, so basically the general idea of a transformer, and I'm going to sketch this because it's the easiest to showcase it this way. Hope this one works. Okay, so traditionally what we do with LLMs right now is that we train on input X and we want output Y. So we train on this pair, right? The example there was, I think, the capital of France. It's Paris. So this is the traditional way of how we're training the models. We're using language that we all speak. Could be English, could be French, could be whatever. Those are the current parameters of how we train. What he proposes is that we don't train on language per se, but we actually yes, we train on embeddings. So instead of matching the sentence, the capital of France is, and the next token prediction would be Paris, we take the input as an embedding and the output as an embedding, and then it becomes multilingual. Now, it's an active research, so of course there are some quirks to polish, because it's not that easy to capture intent in embeddings, right?
Well, ultimately, that is what transformers are doing anyway. He's just trying to make it, to me, it just looks like it's like a one-level optimization. It's not a deep optimization.
No.
Because ultimately you are training embeddings and embeddings alone. That's the only thing that it can do math with. So even if you have text at the input and text at the output, it's still immediately being converted into embeddings, and that's ultimately what's being back propagated or input. You know. But I think Jan LeCun's point is something greater. What he wants is for it to be working in latent space as much as possible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Without even having like text in the picture for each round. So in other words, think about this, come up with a solution, and then we'll worry about even generating text out of it.
To think about it from, and this is, I don't know, maybe like this. Think about it from
So his
like a,
separation is kind of the mind and then the speech mechanism. So
yes.
he's talking about the speech mechanism as being like all that we have right now.
So think about the line in a 3D space. Instead of matching the actual individual words, you're matching the lines. And that's the whole company's policy and philosophy. Actually, rose like $1 billion for this concept. So I would say that there is some hubris to it. But it's very cool. Like,
Well, Jan is one of the big two, right? He and Jeff Hinton are the fathers of modern AI, basically. So he's definitely a heavyweight.
what can you do this week? And what are the key points to take away from this one? Apply for a MIMO with ultra speed. Whether you get it or not, who cares? If you get in, give it a go. Get the feel for the future. If we actually get into the space of producing 1,000 tokens per second, what does that reality mean to you? How fast can you ship? What does it mean for your business? Audit your cursor dependency. See where you're actually using it, if you're using it. What changes if you get locked out of something like GPT in cursor? Does it mean a lot to you? Are you okay using their orchestrator model? If you are, you will be very likely to be okay with their flip into Grok. For more let's say production and actual coding, test Kimi-K 2.7. On high speed, 180 to 260 tokens per second at reasonable price. Give it a go. Again, it's something that is way faster than what you currently have on hand. Kimi notoriously is very good at coding, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Is it $4 like at the high end of the price range?
I think that will be median, because you will have many providers that will give you different pricing. Keep in mind that this speed is guaranteed from Kimi Labs. Like it's not something Moonshot AI, I think they are. So this is not something that you might be able to get from OpenRouter. But yeah, they call it the budget Fable 5. Check out the PPT Master, especially if your workflow and day-to-day has to do with a lot of presentations and creation of presentations. And last but not least, start planning for a multi-provider world. This is a controversial take, but I think we should stop fanboying like a certain lab. We should start utilizing each and every one of them for their strengths and weaknesses. And if we want to stay durable in the days or maybe months or years to come, we need to accept the fact that going with just one is no longer the best possible way forward. Start planning for these things, as I always keep saying, and it came true with Agents SDK and Cloud P. People who are building on top of that ecosystem, Rugpool by Anthropic, we have stopped supporting that. You know, it can happen. It can happen with ChatGPT. It can happen with Chinese labs. You never know. So plan with a multi-model perspective of the world. What was that?
I like that approach. Actually, I saw a video today where they were talking about local models and they get better and more reliable. Just like figuring out for yourself what you use the model for, and especially, for example, if you're handling sensitive data. I mean, it's great if you have a local model who can handle that because you don't give the data to the company. And they like extracted, like they let the local model analyze the data, and then for like more complex tasks, they let the local model like take out the sensitive data and just replace it by placeholder, and then they send the data with the placeholder to the like to Opus or something, and then they do the hard work, and then they import that data, and then let the local models fill in the data.
Also, if you are running local models, I highly recommend it because there's no better way of learning about LLMs than through local models. And it's also really exciting to see exactly the same model, like say when 3.6, get faster week to week, just because you've done a Git update on the engine, on the inference engine, like ONLX. You just do an update of that, and it brings in the latest D-Flash libraries and these other things. You compile it a little bit, and if it's Python, you don't have to do that. And voila, your entire experience is now well calculated. And then we go back and see, hey, what was responsible for that? And that immediately gives you, you look at the changes in the repos, and you immediately have an inroad into what's actually going on with all of these things.
Very true, and especially if you want your life on hard mode, go with AMD. Like the amount of things that I have to fix software-wise just doesn't happen on NVIDIA. So yeah, local models, AMD, tremendous learning curve, but it works. Like,
I think the hardest part at the moment is just to know actually all the models and know which model is good at what, and then figure out your own stack which fits to your own needs.
yeah, but that's the part of the discovery process that unfortunately you have to partake on your own. That being said, when you look at Hugging Face, give me a sec, I'll actually whip it up.
If you're using a Mac, then the hardware question is kind of like made very easy for you. So,
When you search for, let's say, a Hermes model, there are some from Now's research, but let's see, TensorBlock. So Hermes 3, Llama 3.1, 70 billion parameters, LoRa ablated. I have no idea what that means, but you will most likely read about it in the model's card. But in general, if you have a task-specific thing that you want to do, be it inbox triage for Google or something similar, there might already be a very small model that was specifically fine-tuned to do that. And on Hugging Face, you can actually search these models, and there are different quantizations, like Gemma 4, 12 billion parameter, Coder, Fable 5, Composer 2.5. Those are post-training regimes. So for the thinking phase, they actually took the outputs from Fable, took the outputs from Composer 2.5, and they baked them into a small model. And now this model, available to download, it's like, okay, usable would be Q8, Q6 for sure, Q4 maybe. Like that would be borderline. Don't go into Q3, Q2. Usually that you're not going to have a good time.
Martin, this may be a little too deep for someone who's just getting into it. There's one model that I would recommend, just a single one, not one of many, for practically any task, including coding, and that's Qwen 3.6 Coder, 35 billion, 3 billion missions.
Yeah.
So just literally that one model. And if, if you have a reasonably, not super powerful, but reasonably 64 gigs of that memory, which is not terrible yet.
Well, 100% for sure. If you are to pick just one, pick this one. It's an absolute goat from like general purposedness. And if you know how to operate this particular one, you pretty much know how to operate them all. With Mixture of Experts, it's a little bit harder to post-train, but there are many tools that can actually help you do the job. And it has the most support out of the open source models that I've ever seen. Look at this, 484 different quantizations. And in this particular sense, a quantization means two things. Either make the model more efficient or make it do one task pretty good, because they mixed both of them into one. You can have a quant that is specific for OpenClaw, quant that is specific for Hermes, for coding, for marketing, for whatever. So this one thing, if you can run it.
Can you run it comfortably on an M5 MacBook?
Oh, absolutely.
Depends on RAM.
I run it on M1
30.
I run it on an M1 with 64 gigs, and it's super. I love it.
So yeah, in general, full weights model, no. You would be looking at quantization 4, and there might even be an ML export.
If you install LM Studio, it will tell you if it runs on your computer.
Okay.
So you search the Qwen 3.6, 3.5B, A3B, and it'll tell you.
Which software to use to run it?
Okay.
Anything LM or
LM Studio.
LM Studio, Olama,
OpenWeb UI?
OpenWeb UI as well. Yeah. Depends on your hardware. So for example, my main AI machine is AMD, and the best way to actually run anything is their service called Lemonade Server. This is specifically made by AMD to support AMD-based chipsets. More specifically, the laptop-based ones, mini PC-based ones, not your traditional server rooms that you might find in data centers. This is for consumer hardware. So this is for AMD, probably the best. Because it's under the hood, it runs Llama CPP, but it's optimized for specifically the architecture of, let's say, GFX 1151 or something similar.
And
So
LM Studio, I think it's closed source. Is it doesn't matter?
Does not matter, to be honest.
If you want to reduce your memory usage, or you don't want to have to figure out what the Vcache limit measurements are, this is a llama, because a llama will automatically detect that.
This Olama, absolutely fine. It has a tiny footprint that is Olama specific, but it's not going to eat into your RAM that much.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it too much. It is very simple and very easy. It takes just one command to pull a model, done. And it exposes an endpoint. And that's a little bit more technical, like how to actually, get whatever you want to get connected to it, but it's doable.
I just live in Claude Code all the time. What would be a use case that would make sense for me?
With Claude Code, just use Claude.
To use anything from Alarm, like Quen, why would I use Quen when I'm living in Claude Code? I'm just trying to find.
It's pretty much if you want to have a local model and
Yeah, but
don't give your
that's
data
not a
out.
use case, like,
Privacy,
privacy.
Or you are out of Wi-Fi.
or not paying,
You are not out of Wi-Fi, you are on the plane, you can skip.
sure, also,
When I went to China, I actually downloaded local models because I didn't know what to connect to. And China doesn't really have access to Google, to Anthropic, etc. So I didn't want to hassle with their local Chinese-specific VPNs. So I just downloaded a model and ran that. But that was back in the day. That was like DeepSeek Coder when it was a thing. But no, so Olama, Lemonades, LM Studio, absolutely fine. And this is why we featured Odysseus, or Odysseus, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Does it have like a, yeah, it has a site. So this one actually has a baked-in LLM estimator inside of it. So it helps you create an agent, connect it to an external source, but it also has, it's a bunch of open source programs, right? So it has an evaluator that helps you estimate what sort of local AI can you actually run. And at that point, like, you're not paying for any external services. Is it better than Claude? Hell no. Not even close.
no.
But is it usable? Well, it depends on what you want to use it for. And if your use case is specific enough and narrow enough, then absolutely. Like those local AIs that help you annotate pictures in your image library, those are running on your phone most of the time, right? And those are small, lightweight models, and they do a pretty good job. So it heavily depends on your use case.
It's kind of what it shows there too, so it can do like read your email, it can do research for you, it can connect to like
Local first, privacy first, no telemetry.
So you just suggested a use case that I'm curious about with Quen. If all I wanted to do was have an automated system just looking at all images on my computer, because I don't want to spend the money on Claude for that sort of stuff. I wanted to describe them, I wanted to get a taxonomy ontology based on. Is that something that Quen?
That is an excellent question, and that is where this entire repository of Hugging Face comes into play. If you just want to annotate images, there are vision models. So let's pull up Quen Lab.
And also you can plug in, for example, instead of plugging like API like Cloud or something like that, you can redirect Windows
Oh, here.
and they are doing
The VL models, for example. So you can pick a fairly small one, and it will be able to annotate pretty much any image. And that's a 4 billion parameter model. You can run it on your phone effectively, with lower quantization, of course. But yeah, so this is specifically and exactly the case where local models actually come out ahead because they're fairly cheap. You can run them on consumer hardware, and depending on the task, you absolutely don't need to pay super expensive pricing of Claude or ChatGPT. Slava, you You wanted to ask something.
Like the philosophy that you suggested, Martin, to be prepared for the world where we are changing flexibly the models. And when we think about preparing for this reality, I guess something needs to stay constant. And is it a harness? Can I practically, what is the best way to integrate, for example, if I use Cloud Code, can practically, if I want to switch between models and maybe do smart routing, yeah, how?
Excellent question. What is the actual tether in this world where the models themselves are not sticky? Like, what is this? Harness 100%. And that's for two specific reasons. A, if you have harness that you can plug any intelligence into, and it stays the same, like the workflow is the same. Even this one is basically a harness. Like Aeon UI is basically a harness. Yeah. This one. Or, just give me a sec. I'll try to drag this one. Kyber agent. Like you can, just give me a sec. And transfer this. Oh, this jumping dog. It's always fun. So this is also something that is a custom harness. You can plug in any provider you want. So the logic behind the harness and behind what you do, how you do it, stays the same. You're just flicking the intelligence switch. So that's one thing. Second thing is that if you construct your own harness, which is becoming more and more easy nowadays, you dictate rather than others deciding you being like force-fed. So you have two layers of abstraction. You become model independent and intelligence independent, and you become, I want to say SaaS independent. Let's see Cursor, for example. If you were with Cursor from the moment they started, it was basically a fork of VS Code. So you've spent some time, you've put some effort, you learned how it actually works, how to extend it, how to operate, all of the hotkeys, etc. Cursor 3 came along, a forced update, they flipped it. It looks like Codex app. So suddenly, everything that you painfully learned how to do in the previous iteration of the app got flipped on its head. And suddenly some things that might have been very important to you are not there anymore. So constructing your own harness, everybody says don't do that. We're in a stage where you can pick a thing like, let's say this one. So you take Aeon UI, you go to their GitHub page, you download it, and you just basically start telling your Claude Code right now, for example, I want a different tab there. I want tab for my emails. I want tab for this. I want tab for that. And it will construct a harness specifically for you. And at that stage, it plugs into every single coding agent there is, every single harness, like the underlying harness, PI, open code, etc. It doesn't matter. Plugs into everything. This thing primarily plugs into the AI itself. So you have a little bit more control around how it actually behaves in the agentic loop. So it's like, there is a word for it in Slovak language. I don't know how to say that in English. Polotovar. Polotovar. It's like ready-made food, right? If you buy a ready-made pizza, frozen pizza, instant food. Instant food. You're like half of the way there. You can stop there if you want, or you can keep adding things.
So if we think in like maturity stages, let's say for people who like me maybe are with Cloud Code, what's the next step? Like, do I need to change the harness, or can I stay with Cloud Code? What's the smallest step? And then I guess what you're showing is way ahead. No, it's like quite an investment to jump from Cloud Code to something like this.
Mind if I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
There's one, I think I'm hearing the same thing a lot. It's a worthy goal, in this AI progression is to have one's understanding become clearer and clearer, because these things are really very simple underneath. So if your idea of what's happening is becoming more complicated over time, then that's not a good sign. It should be getting more simple over time, because there's an incredible simplicity of vision to be had with these systems. Like these are the simplest systems that have ever existed in computer science. Literally the simplest systems. They're far simpler than operating systems, they're far simpler than word processors, they're far simpler than even email programs. They're incredibly, like transformers, these AIs are incredibly simple. So try to make your understanding of them match their natural simplicity.
But it's a very question. I want to go with Sequent, the one that you suggested.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next specific step from Cloud Code using Cloud to Quent?
It sounds like part of the answer is looking for the way I'm interpreting it is if you're going to use these local models, how are you going to run them? Are you going to get Pi? Are you going to get Lang Chain? Are you going to get Claude Code to write it for you?
There's a very simple answer to this as well. So all these models, there's a common interface that's been developed for whether you're running a model in the cloud, like Claude by default will speak to one of Anthropic servers, or whether you're running it locally, and that's called the OpenAI interface, basically. So if you're running a local model, Claude needs to have to speak to something that's running on your machine, which is called an inference engine. And there are many of these. So you have a model, which you can think of as a record or this, So that's a file on your computer. So when you download Quen, you're going to get a 35 gig file sitting on your machine. And you need something that can play that file. Like you can just think of an inference engine as just a player, like a music player for this type of file. And then once it's playing, Claude can connect to it. Both of them are running on the same machine, but Claude is still connecting it to it as if it was running on the cloud. So when your inference engine is going to basically act as a server, as a web server, but it's running on the same machine. And then all you do is tell Claude, you get your inference, like if you're running OMLX or LX server, you see the string that you have to copy and paste into Claude to get it to know where the OpenAI endpoint is. It will literally tell you, here's a string, it has a port, it just looks like a URL with a port number associated with a V1. Just copy and paste that. It's really simple. I can do a demo of this at some point if people are interested.
Yes.
I think I will answer that. I think if you just download, let's say, Olama and Queen directly from Cloud Code, you can change and say connect it to Olama, and that will be connected directly to Queen.
Right. So in this setup, so I understood. I get a link. I put my Cloud Code towards this link and not towards the Claude API. And now, did they lose my harness? Because where was it living? It was on their servers.
What do you mean by a harness? Claude is the harness. Claude Code is your
Right, so I lost now the whole thing that I used, right?
Let me show you visually. This is you who wants to talk with an AI. Now, you can't just talk directly to Anthropic. It just doesn't happen. There's always a middleman. The middleman being your Claude Code, or Anthropic Web. So if you're chatting with AI, you are using that through their Anthropic's website, Claude.ai. That is the harness. So this one directly tied to Anthropic, to the source of intelligence, their model. Claude Code, same thing. Now, if you have this harness and you don't want to move from it, there is a way to basically steer the endpoints towards something else. Now that something else needs to have the exact shape and form as the intelligence is being served to Claude Code from Anthropic. And Anthropic is a very specific case in this use case because most of the endpoints support something that's called OpenAI standard. So that's the standard of communication, how the message is shaped, how does it look, how do I actually read it from the harness perspective. But Anthropic has their own standard, which is Anthropic standard, so you have to tweak it a little bit. But it's absolutely doable. So you get Qwen 3.6 running. Now you can get it running using MLX, Lemonade, Ollama, and it produces an endpoint, which is going to look something like 127.0.0.1/ I don't know, 8765, whatever. This is going to be your endpoint. The only thing that you're doing, if you want to migrate from Anthropic into something else, is that you basically take this arrow and you point it here. That's it, done.
But you've got a big problem if you're using Claude Code to do that, because yes, it can talk to OpenAI compatible endpoints, which is fine, and maybe Qwen 3.6 would be good enough. But most models, the reason Claude Code works is not just because it can do a chat, it's because it can do tool calling.
Yeah.
And not many models actually do tool calling very well.
That is untrue.
So I use tool calling with Qwen 3.6 all the time, so I can read, edit, do good action.
And I said yes to that one, but what about a lot of these other ones?
Okay, again, if we're going smaller, if we're going more specific, we have to go more specific with our harness as well. Yeah. Because we're going specific, we're trying to optimize for something.
That's why I was suggesting, you wouldn't really be thinking of hooking into Claude.
No, personally, I would.
Pi or LangChain
Yes.
and build your own harness, right?
Not for Qwen though.
Well, Pi actually, Pi and Qwen is quite good.
For
It's a
Qwen,
good
there's
combo.
no need to. I mean, it's
Sure,
it's not limiting you in any way.
The question came about multiple models, and not about Qwen. If it was Qwen, yeah, you plug it into Claude Code. But this is my curiosity question of, if you've got all these models out there, what is your harness? Well, it's not Claude.
So, for example, for your specific use case, and let's get a little bit more specific. You want to annotate images.
Yes.
Call the API directly. Construct a message envelope, whatever is at the other end, hook it through one API call, that's it.
So just
no middleman. Yes. Something like that.
That's interesting.
So I would absolutely skip any harness in your particular use case. Just shape the message envelope. This is an image. This is what I want from you. This is the shape of the response that I want. Done. For your specific use case, as you want your day-to-day to basically be replaced from Claude Code to something else, maybe a little bit of coding, a ton of research, I assume. Yeah?
Coding, research, a lot of things. And I
Yeah.
just want to be like, go for this model, go for this, or for this, or
So-
go back to cloud. Yeah.
There's a couple of different flavors of these. One is the graphical user interface style, which is okay, like LM Studio. And then there's the others that look like Claude, like I used Hermes, which is very simple, easy to use. And then Pi is another one that I've heard some folks mention. I know that Frank has built his own version of Hermes now.
What about Codex? Replacing Codex?
Codex, absolutely you can.
Because I heard that through the grapevine that Cloud Code is one of the worst harnesses.
It is.
So if you're going to replace your model, replace your harness.
Right, and what will happen? Because I just
I
have
mean,
no idea.
will it crash or will it stop performing?
Nothing
I
much.
don't think so.
Honestly,
All
like
modern.
nothing much.
Is enough parameters.
The biggest problem that you are going to run into is optimizing this. And I'm speaking from personal experience. So the biggest problem you will have in this entire process is not rerouting from harness to something else or even picking your harness. You want to do research, right? There is a thing, and I'll pull it up. called Open Notebook LM. You want to do research, why the heck would you constrain yourself to Claude Code? Open Notebook LM lets you save links, sources, automatically refreshes that. You can hook that to Open Perplexity, have your own Perplexity, powered by Qwen 3.6 or some other local small model. Like again, you don't have to confine yourself to just one harness. And again, this you can put any model there. So the model part is non-sticky.
And what about what you said? Most of the time, you expect people
here.
to tweak. This tweaking doesn't have to do something with trust in your model, because I run now Claude with dangerous quick permissions and I trust it. Now I switch and I'm like, oh.
Oh no, definitely don't do that here. Yeah. So that is the first point. Bypass here equals must sandbox. I'm gonna put an exclamation mark there. You must sandbox it. Because these small models, they basically can drift way easier than the big models from Frontier Labs can. And again, because you are using different harness, you are nichely specifying it to something else, this sandbox is out of the box. That's not a problem. And it usually just does web search, grep, and easy stuff. But you must sandbox if you're letting it into your file system. That's number one thing. Again, personal experience. Just one second. Second thing that you're going to struggle with is the fine-tune between how much context should you allow it to have, how do you handle compaction if this doesn't handle it for you, and you have to optimize for it on the server side here, how do you handle when it compacts, how it compacts, etc., and how to keep the session persistent. And the third thing that you need to optimize for is thinking, which was actually suggested that just drop thinking entirely, let it go directly into instruct mode. Benefits, it will be faster because you are basically giving it a task. It does the task, comes back with the result, and maybe you can utilize some clever tricks like loops or a hook system that will run a Ralph loop and basically loop the model itself on itself. So it produces better result and mimic thinking. Or you cap it, and I usually do the cap at 1024 tokens. So this is my hard cap. Whenever it starts thinking more than 1000 tokens, it stops. It must stop. The turn stops and it moves into the next stage. So this is the fine-tuning that you have to do. It's very specific for every specific hardware. The numbers, if I give you some numbers right now, it won't be true when you sit down home in front of your computer. It is highly dependent. So this is the thing that you are going to, I don't want to say struggle, but spend the most time on fine-tuning it. But at the end of it, you'll have a usable thing. Like for me personally, I have a usable thing at home. I'm offloading part of the work to that thing at home, not the frontier and like novel thinking and the thing that I actually need to ship. I'm not doing that with Qwen 3.6. But then again, you can use a dumber model for your day-to-day conversation and save on costs if you are utilizing the smart model only for the actual coding. So yeah, this is kind of how it works. And this can run on a VPS, it can run locally, it's just the endpoint. It runs the entire pipeline, but whatever you access it from, that's up to you.
Even this it makes it look more complicated than it really is. The only things that, again, getting to that level of like simplicity always, there's just this file, this model file, there's just a model player or reader, and there's this harness which just allows you to take your prompts and give it to it. Everything else is a detail, but really getting to this gestalt of what's actually going on and being super clear about it, so that even in the middle of the night when you're dreaming, you're not confused about about what's going on. You know, this is super important. Everything else is just icing on the cake. But if you don't have these fundamentals and the simplicity, it could take years to realize, oh my God, it was always just that simple. You know, and it really is. This is why I've repeated it 2 or 3 times, because I'm hearing these questions which seem to be coming from a place of more complexity than they should be.
And don't be scared. Try it out. Start with a 1 billion parameter model. Like honestly, just a small model that prints you hello world. It doesn't matter. Just to get the feel for it, you know.
What I might recommend is another model, which is the DeepSeek model, V4. It's much cheaper than Cloud Code, and it's pretty good. There's a V4 Flash, a V4 Pro, and you can use their own harness called ReasonX.
Yeah, we covered this 2 weeks ago, I think.
And it's pretty good. I've been using it. I mean, is the same as like Fable? Definitely not. But I've been using it with my Hermes agents, and I've got a really good use cases for it, and it's been working well. So I'm building things. It's pretty smart. I even have it like deploy out to my servers and check issues and come back to me, and it's all using DeepSeek because I want to obviously save money because of Anthropic's -P. Now they put it back. Now you can use -P again. So, but I think it's quite useful. It's cheap, and you can put your own amount that you want on it. Like, I want to spend $10, and you can see how far that can go for you. But you can use almost any harness with this. If you use Hermes, they have a way you can just automatically add it to your Hermes. Or now Hermes has desktop too. I should also mention that too, because that's a new release.
Yeah, but it kind of sucks. Like it's Hermes desktop. I personally tried it,
For
and
these guys, though, I mean,
no, it still sucks. And the thing is with Hermes. Give me a sec. And I'm not gonna lie, like you can install the desktop app for Hermes now, which Hermes is basically your cloud code that comes pre-configured with skills and like nice daily goodly necessities. That being said, a lot of these frontier labs, such as ChatGPT's Codex or even Claude Code, are catching up to these agentic systems quite fast. Things like workflow loops, Codex has app server automations. All those things start to exist nowadays in other ecosystems. So you don't necessarily have to revert to your OpenClaw or Hermes. OpenClaw has a desktop app, Hermes has a desktop app. Download it, play with it, it's not that hard. That being said, it still sucks. Like I tried it and the entire process, it crashed like 3 times on me. Connecting it to the remote gateway, it was not such a seamless process that I would want as from the non-technical standpoint, like, oh, let me test this Hermes thing. What the hell is this Hermes thing? Everybody keeps talking about Hermes. It's not as simple to set it up. That being said, it's way simpler than if you have to bury yourself in terminal.
One thing that really helps as well is to follow people like, just one name out of many, like Karpathy and others at that level, because the better people are in this AI game, the simpler their language is. This is what you always know, the difference between an expert and somebody who's just trying to make their way into this, what seems to be complex field, is that the people at the top have a very simple view of everything, extremely simple. And it's really worth knowing the kinds of words that they're using to describe these systems, because it comes from the intentional point. It comes from the creative point of view. They're the ones driving it forward. They see where things are going, and the intention that led to everything being the way that it is right now. So it's really worth following people at that level. Dennis Hassabis, Jan LeCun, Andre Karpathy, even though he's not at the same level, but he's a very good communicator, people like that.
I would also like to highlight a couple of people, since we're at it. 0x0, absolutely great dude. It has its own server rack, his own GPU stack. And what he utilizes it for is to actually do the training create small models that are way more efficient and are specifically made to run on your consumer end hardware. Absolutely cool dudes. If you're on X, give him a follow. And the second one,
Not to this, but I ended up unfollowing him because he was too in the weeds. You know, he's still
Yeah.
not one of those visionaries who can see things at a simplistic level, at a simpler level. Not
nah,
simplistic.
I enjoy his rants. Personally, I enjoy his rants. But yeah, I think that'll be it for me, to be honest. We only have a couple of points for breakout discussion. So thank you very much for coming. It's been lovely and a pleasure. And let's break up and let's talk about the problems that we have and how to solve them.
Thank you.
Absolutely no problem. Thank you very much for everyone who joined on the stream. See you next week.